Grab your Bibles, let's go to Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon, chapter 1. We're going to look at verses 5 through 8. Last week, we looked at verses 1 through 4, and we looked at this whole issue of attraction and desire and how, even as a little child or at some point, you kind of wake up to the opposite sex and you look across the room and you think, wow, I'm actually attracted and I would like one of those for my own, and that's kind of a big day for you. But what you see following on the heels of that is we could call insecurity, right? Because there is a fear of being rejected. There is a fear of being turned away. This object of your desire may say, I have no desire for you. I don't think you're pretty. I don't think you are a nice person, whatever. There's all these reasons that can get in and interrupt what you would hope, this sort of mutual desire that a man and a woman would have for each other. And that's what we're going to see today. We're going to see the woman, through her eyes, she's going, I have a desire for him, and I feel really insecure about some things in my life, and I hope that he feels the same way as I feel about him. And so you're going to hear her talk and kind of unpack that a little bit. And it's very interesting. This is truly one of the most practical books we can study together, and I hope you're enjoying this as we walk through this. But she's going to basically ask a couple of questions. And so we're going to walk along with her, hear these questions, and then see how they get answered, hear what she's saying, what he's saying, and he's going to actually respond to her insecurities. And this is a great place for us to listen up. If you are married, if you are single, if you have any desire to be married, ever desire to be in a relationship, are in a relationship, and want to know, is it honoring to God, you have picked the right day to come. And then we're going to end by just saying, what does this teach us about Jesus? Because that's the most important question we can ask of any text in Scripture, is how we understand God, the gospel, Jesus Christ, and what it teaches about it, okay? So the first question she's going to ask is simply this: do you find me as attractive as I find you? Okay, now this is a pretty basic question. You see somebody, you desire them, and now you're wondering, do they feel this about me? Now this is a very reasonable question for her to be asking, especially because in that culture, almost certainly this was an arranged marriage. Okay, that was mom and dad's got together, and I like your son, and we'd like to put you together with our daughter, and we're going to arrange this, and there'd be dowries and things paid to one another, and all the arrangements made, and then they finally meet each other. And so she's already told us last week, I see that man, I desire him, I want a kiss on my mouth, I want all this. Now I wonder if he feels the same way as I do. And that's kind of what you're going to see today. So she's saying, do you find me as attractive as I find you? So she's going, is he disappointed? Like, he's now seen me. Is he going to have a wandering eye? Is he going to look at other girls and say, man, I had to settle for this one when there's so many more beautiful girls out there? So it's a very reasonable question that she's asking. And so what she's going to do now is she's going to say, look, I want to show you, sir, I want to show you, this other person, that there is a lot here that I want to make sure you see, okay? So as she talks about being physically attracted to one another, the first thing I want you to see is she knows that she is more than her appearance. That is, that her beauty is deeper than the skin. So look at verse 5 with me, and look what she says. I am very dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. She says, I'm very dark. She literally says, I'm black. That's how it reads in the Hebrew. But she doesn't mean like we think of like an African American or somebody who is, it's a racial thing. That's not it. She's going to say the reason she's black, we'll see this later, the reason she's dark is because she's sun-scorched. Okay, she has been out in the sun, and it is beat down on her, and she's dark. But she says, I'm dark, but I'm lovely. And what she's saying is, in that culture, being dark-skinned was, to be tanned wasn't any sort of bragging right. They weren't walking around comparing tan lines with her friends, right? Not happening. So she says, this is not a good thing for me in my culture. Right? So, think about this. Pre-industrial society. So before we had factories, before we had workplaces, where did most people go to work? Outside. So she would go outside. Where did the rich people go? Well, they stayed inside in the shade where it was cool, and they sent people to do the labor. So what your dark skin showed is you were poor and you didn't have the resources to take care of yourself. And she says, this is me. And I feel some insecurities about this, right? So she says, I'm dark, but I'm lovely. But she says, look, what I want you to notice is that my beauty is deeper than my skin. So that's why she says, oh, daughters of Jerusalem, I'm dark but lovely, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Okay, so she's comparing her dark skin to something, a physical referent that this man would know. And this is so he would know sort of the Bedouin culture where they pack up their tents and they move around. And to a Bedouin, they put a lot of thought and effort into the tent, and those tents would have been darker material. And the curtains of Solomon are most likely the curtains that would have been hung in the temple that would have separated, the holy place from the most holy place where God is. So what she's saying there is, this is what I'm like. I'm like these curtains. This outward skin is hiding what's on the inside. There is a treasure for you to find. And listen, guys, a girl, your girlfriend, your wife, wants to know, needs to know, you think she's beautiful, like physically attractive. I don't know any woman who says, yeah, it's fine if he thinks I'm a dog, right? She's like, no, I need to know, I want to know that you think I'm physically attractive, but she wants to know it's more than that. She wants to know there's something, like, are you attracted to something, are you just attracted to what you see on the outside, or are you attracted to what's on the inside as well? There's this podcast that I listen to just because I kind of geek out on like these things that sort of teach you something about our world that I would never have even thought to explore. So one of them is this podcast called Freakonomics Radio. And if you ever read the book Freakonomics, it's absolutely a fascinating book. But they did one they do this podcast where every week they do a new episode. And a couple of weeks ago, one of the episodes, I don't know how long ago it was, but they did an episode on called What You Don't Know About Online Dating. So I thought, well, I don't know a lot about online dating, and that's, I'd like to learn. So I'd listen, I'm kind of curious, and it starts off with a story of this girl named Allie Reed. And Allie Reed is this very intelligent, a bright, apparently good-looking woman living in New York City. She's a comedy writer. She's got a lot going for her, but her romance life is, kind of not going well. So this is a true story. So she decides to upload a profile and get involved in this dating service called OkCupid. I've never heard of it, but I've heard of it then. So she got in there, she uploaded her profile, included her picture, answered the questions, all this stuff, and the interviewer says, so how did it go? And she says, well, I got a few, likes and a few hits on my, my page. He says, yeah, but? And she says, well, what bothered me was that not one of the comments I received back talked about anything in my profile. It had everything to do with like how I looked and things like that. It had no comments about me and my life and what I do or anything like that. So he goes, she said, so I decided to do a little experiment. This really happened. So she decided, she's a comedy writer, so she's kind of a funny gal, and she decided, I'm going to create a fake profile. So she created a fake profile, and the name of the profile was Aaron Carter Fan. Now, most of you, I'm guessing, do not know who Aaron Carter is. He's not an athlete. He is a failed rap musician who was a brother of one of the Backstreet Boys. And his lyrics were known to be just vacuous. I mean, just empty. They did nothing, right? So she's like, this is what I want this girl to be. I want her to be just empty. There's no substance whatsoever to her. In fact, more than that, I want her to be not only no substance, no real substance, I want to paint her as the worst woman you could possibly meet. So she answers questions on the profile. It's so funny. She answers questions on the profile. One of the questions is, what are you good at? She says, and she answers it, I'm good at convincing people I'm pregnant. She says, what do you like to do on a Friday night? I like to knock drinks out of homeless people's hands because I like to see them scramble. She just wants to paint her as an awful, she's racist, she's a gold digger, she's all these things. And then she fills out the profile, gets it all done, and then she reaches out to one of her friends who lives in Australia who is a model and says, could I use your picture? And she uploads her picture with this profile. Apparently the girl is stunningly beautiful. And so the interview goes, well, how'd it go for Aaron Carter fan? Said in the first 24 hours, I got 100 responses. In the few weeks that it was up, I got well over 1,000. And she said it was really crazy because she said over 10 times the hits that I got in the time I was on there. But she said I would get guys wanting to chat with me online from this service. So she thought, I'm going to see what happens. I'm not going out with any guy that likes this girl. But she says she puts it up and they start chatting. And so they'll ask her a question, hey, what's going on? And she decided, how empty-headed, how much do they just see her versus who she really is? So she literally just banged on her keyboard, just blah, 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 just nothing, just wrote back nothing. And the guys would respond, cool, what are you doing Friday night? It's like, you're kidding me, right? I mean, this is the world we live in. The physical appearance is everything. And the woman in Song of Solomon is saying, man, I want you to be. I hope that you are physically attracted to me, but boy, I hope you like me. I hope you like what's beneath the skin. I hope you like what's inside the tent. I hope you like me for who I am. Guys, the woman in your life needs to know she's beautiful, but she needs to know she's beautiful all the way through, that you love her. You like her, and you're not just physically attracted to her. Okay, so she wants to know that she's more than her appearance. But the second thing is that she's going to say very plainly, I'm really insecure about my appearance, right? So yes, there's more than meets the eye here, but I'm afraid that what meets the eye, you're not going to like. So look at how she says this in verse 6. Do not gaze at me because I am dark. Don't focus what you're looking at on this part of my body, on this part of my physical appearance that I am really ashamed of because the sun has looked on me. Okay, so she looks and goes, I know that my skin is dark. I know that I am darker than the culture says I'm supposed to be, because in that culture, you're supposed to have creamy white skin, and that's what sets you apart as very attractive. And she looks and goes, I know, right? I know. And a woman would say this, I know my hips are bigger than the culture says. I know my nose is longer. I know my hair is too thin. I know, whatever. They go on and on. I know there's this physical flaw in me, and nobody sees it more than me. See, most women see their flaws in high definition. Guys, let me just tell you, ladies, guys look in the mirror and go, is everything still attached? Good, let's go to work, right? And we're fine. For the most part, right? It's not that, you don't see every single flaw. You guys see every wrinkle in your eyes. You see every, there's a place that there's a bulge that you wish there wasn't a bulge. There's, you see it all. And she says, I'm really super sensitive about this. And I hope you can look past this. And I hope this isn't a turnoff to you. She's insecure. I mean, she needs to know. She knows she's not living up to this cultural standard. She knows her girlfriends are probably commenting about it behind her back, like, oh yeah, she's got really dark skin. I'm glad I'm not like her. And it's bothering her. It's interesting. In the book of 1 Peter, it's written by Apostle Peter, he exhorts men. And he says this at one point. He says, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. Now, guys, you know what that means? That means that, and I don't mean this to sound weird, you must be a student of your wife. You must know things about her. You must watch her. And one of the things that you will understand if you're paying attention is that your wife is probably, if she's like 99% of other women, she's probably very insecure about her body. And one of the things that you're supposed to do is live with her in a way where you know that. And you don't know that so you can torture her. You know that so you can lift her up and say, I think you're beautiful. I look at you and I am stunned by your beauty. So when your wife gets ready for an evening to go out with you and she stands in front of you and says, how do I look? You know what answer she doesn't want to hear? Fine. Look great. You always look great. Fine. Good. Like, that's it, huh? She's asking, am I beautiful? Do you still find me attractive? She wants you to look at her and say, oh, you look amazing. Now, this isn't flattery. This is a God-given thing to look at your wife and go, she's so beautiful to me. I mean, this is just good. Listen, a good marriage happens if you'll follow this advice. This is God saying, I want to show you how to have a great marriage, right? And this is what you do. See, and guys, you're probably going to have to say this to your wife. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. I think you're so beautiful. I'm so attracted to you. You're going to probably have to say it to her 100,000 times during your marriage. Is that because your wife is stupid and just doesn't get it? No. It's because, like you, she has insecurities. We'll talk about your insecurities here in a moment. Like you, she has good days where things are right, and she has bad days where this is not all right. I don't like my body. I don't like some things about myself. And like you, God gave her a spouse, a husband, to come alongside and encourage her when she feels insecure. One of the things a man ought to be doing in a marriage, in a relationship, is we ought to be providing security. And one of the ways we provide security is not just in financial provision or things or a place to live, the security that she should feel comfortable in her own skin around you. And she's like, man, my husband, whatever I think about myself, I can tell you one thing for sure. My husband thinks I'm the most beautiful girl on the planet. And you should. So she says, I'm insecure about that. But now look at this. She didn't spend all of her time working on her appearance. In fact, she couldn't. Look at the rest of it. She says, my mother's sons were angry with me. They made me keepers of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. In other words, here I am, right? We live in this culture so obsessed with external appearance. And she says, I didn't have time to do that. Right? I didn't have time to spend my days at the shopping mall. I didn't have time. I was doing other things. I have an excuse for my dark skin. I have an excuse for why I can't have washboard abs. I have an excuse for why my hair isn't perfect every day. It's because I don't have the time. I'm working on other things, which leads me to the next thing. She's a hard worker. She says, in fact, look at that. She says, my mother's sons were angry with me. They made me keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. There it is again. She's saying, look, I was working so hard, I didn't even have a chance to work on my own body. And by the way, the vineyard that she uses, she refers to the vineyard that she was working on, but she didn't have a chance to work on her own vineyard. What does she mean? She's talking about her body. This is going to be an illustration of the woman's body that's going to be returned to a few times in the Song of Solomon. She's going to describe herself as a vineyard. She says, I was working so hard in helping other people. I was trying to put food on the table. I was trying to learn how to be a good mom, a good wife, a good worker. I didn't have time to just be working on my body all the time. Guys, I hope you value this. I hope you value a woman who knows how to work hard. I hope that if you're married today and you have a hard-working spouse, I'm talking husband or wife, that you will affirm them for that. I hope if you're in a relationship today and you can look at that person that you're wanting to be your husband, you're wanting to be your wife, and you can say, you know what? One thing I am not worried about is that they don't work hard enough. Or if you can look at them and say, they're kind of lazy. They don't work very good. They kind of get everything handed to them. you ought to be very, very careful. Parents, do you teach your kids like this? Because you should. Like we are being told by the culture that the greatest thing you can do is not ever fracture the fragile self-esteem of a child. And so in many ways, that's caused us to retreat. And all I got to do is provide. I've got to do and help and give them everything they want. I mean, parents, do your kids get an allowance just because they woke up? Or do they actually have to work for it? If they want an iPhone, do you just buy it for them? Or do you go, no, it's not happening, you're only 3. Right? Or you want something? Great, that's awesome. You should want that. Now, guess what? You're going to work for it. And so let's figure out, let me show you how to go out and make money. Let me show you how to be entrepreneurial. Let me show you, I'm not just going to hand money to you. I'm not just going to provide for it. Listen, you can have your kids as teenagers going, oh, thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Mommy. You're so sweet to provide me everything you provide for me. You just lavish everything on me when they're teenagers. And in 20 or 30 years, they'll curse you. What did you do to me? Or you can make them work hard today. You're going to work hard on your homework. You're going to work hard at a job. You're going to work hard around this house. You're going to work hard out in the yard, whatever it is. And I promise you, your kids will rise up and call you blessed. Can you go overboard? Of course you can. But I have yet to meet a child who has grown up who says, my parents worked me hard. And he doesn't mean in an abusive way. They worked me. I had to work. Who doesn't look back and say, that's one of the things I most appreciate about my mom and dad. See, she's a hard worker. And that is worth telling him about. Because I'm going to be a good wife to you. I'm going to be a good mother to your children. That's good. But now look at this. She was submissive to the authority in her life. You see this? She says, my mother's brothers, they forced me to work out in the vineyard. I mean, she's angry. These were not good bosses. Right? These were not like, oh, I love my job kind of thing. But she did it, and she submitted to it. And she said, okay, I don't want to do this. They're forcing me to do it. They're mean to me, so that's why I even don't call them my brothers. I call them my mother's sons. But I'm going to do it. She worked hard, and she submitted to the authority in her life. Listen, submission to authority is not popular. Right? We don't like authority. Nobody likes authority. Don't tell me what to do. I don't like authority in the church. I don't like authority in the culture. I don't like the government telling me what to do. I don't like the fact that I have to pay taxes. I don't like the teacher telling me whatever. We hate authority. Now listen to me. If you are in a relationship where you can look at that other person and say, there's things they do not like authority. They're the rebel. And you're attracted to the rebel. You're attracted to that person, man, they do not submit to anything. Then they will never submit to you, and they will not submit to God, and they will break your heart. Ephesians 5 says, wives, submit to your husbands, not as a slave driver, as to the Lord. Guys, she will never submit to you if she won't submit to mom and dad and her teachers and the government or whatever it is. And ladies, if he will not submit to mom or dad or the government or teachers or his boss, then he will never love you like Christ loved the church. He will run over you. Do you have that kind of woman? Do you have that kind of man in your life? So she says, do you find me as attractive as I find you? And then what do I mean by attractive? Do you see deeper than skin? Do you see who I really am? That's her first insecurity. I hope he finds me attractive, but I hope he finds that there's something more, there's something deeper than the skin here. Now, the second question she's going to ask is, do you want to be with me like I want to be with you? Right? So now watch this. Look at verse 7. Tell me You whom my soul loves. I mean, she just puts it out there. I love you. Like at a soul level, I love you. Where you pasture your flock, where you make it lie down at noon. Okay, so let's stop right there, because what she's doing is I want you to see a few things here. She's saying, I want to be with you. Do you want to be with me? Like I want to be with you. And the first thing you're going to see here is she is the aggressor. She initiates. She goes after him. And this is so interesting, because I don't know if you grew up in the church or even much in the culture is saying that a woman should not be this way. Now, that's a man's job. Now, this is not permission for you to just flaunt yourself, ladies. It's not permission for you to dress in a way that causes other men to lust and things like that. But listen, it is permission when it comes to your husband to be the sexual aggressor. In fact, let me just say this. Guys really like that, ladies. They really like when their wives are the aggressor in their relationship. And saying, I want to be with you, right? I mean, the cheer for men is B-E-A-G-G-R-E-S-S-I-V-E, aggressive. B, aggressive, right? I mean, that's guys who are like, that's what I want in a wife, right? Now, why? Why does he want that? Let me let you in on a little secret, ladies. Because deep down, most men are shy in this area. Because one of their greatest insecurities and fears is being rejected sexually. Being rejected by this one that they desire. You do that to a man, ladies. Let me tell you some things you're going to see. I'm not justifying sin, so hear me now. I'm not at all. I'm saying you will probably notice an elevation in anger because he doesn't know what to do with what's pent up there. And over time, he'll become less angry, perhaps, and far more withdrawn from you. And he will never be the man that you want him to be. He won't be the companion you want him to be. He won't be the man of God you want him to be. He won't be the leader that you hope he will be. She's saying, I'm the initiator. I'm going after him. Do you want to be with me like I want to be with you? That's the first thing. But then I want you to notice she's kind of like, okay, where's this relationship going? She wants to be out of the friend zone, okay? She wants this thing to move forward. So look what she says. Let's keep reading. She says, for why should I be like one who veils herself beside the flocks of your companions? I don't want to be just one of the groupie girls around your guys. I don't want to be just one of these people that come to hang out with the guys. I don't want to just be a friend. And she talks about being veiled, and probably that refers to even prostitution. Women who would go down and be with these men and make a little money. He'll sleep with me, I can make a little money. And yet it was a shameful thing, so they veiled themselves. They covered themselves. They didn't want that man to know who they were sleeping with. In fact, you'll see an example of this in I think it's around Genesis chapter 38, where there's this interesting story of Judah and Tamar veils herself, goes where Judah is pasturing his flocks and wants to sleep with him because she wants a baby and she hasn't had a baby yet. And Judah's actually her father-in-law, which is, I know, crazy, but that happens. And it's a wild story, but she veils herself. So she's saying, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be with somebody. I don't want to just be this girl that's kind of obscure. I don't want to just be somebody that has no name to you. I want to have a name. I want to be able to pull off the veil, which means there's a commitment here, which means we are now married, which means there's something beyond just as far. That's what I want. She puts herself out there and says, is this going anywhere? What a risk. Because it's not going anywhere. I want to be done. And she basically puts it back to him. Are you ready to commit the way that I'm ready to commit? Is he? Ladies, guys, are they ready to commit? See, let me say something. The culture has sold you a bill of goods that says the way you get married or the way you pursue a relationship is first you live together, because living together lets you sort of test the waters and figure out if this is going to work. Listen, living together is not commitment. You know what it is? It's commitment until you don't want to be committed anymore. Okay, I'm done. That could be in a year, that could be 5 years, that could be 20 years. No, she's saying, I want to be committed. Listen, ladies, if you have a husband right now, if you're in a relationship where you say, this man is so committed to me, he is faithful to me, right? Give him a big kiss tonight. Guys, if you have a woman that has been faithfully committed to you year after year in a marriage, you say, that is worthy of praise. If you're in a relationship and you're saying, I don't know if this is going to go the distance or not, let me tell you, you look for submission to authority, but you also look for commitment. How? What's that look like? You look for it everywhere that commitment can be demonstrated. Are they committed to friends? Are they committed to a job? Or do they just bounce as soon as something goes wrong, they're out? Are they committed to school? Or no, I'm kind of, I've been through 18 different majors and I can't seem to nail anything down. Are they committed to a local church? Or are they one of these things that as soon as they get ticked off, they're at the next church? And then it'll be a few years, they'll get ticked off there, and they'll go to the next church. And then, it's just going to bounce around, and there's no commitment. See, what you're looking for is the person who has this evidence of commitment in their life that says, look, no one, no institution, no friend, no school, no major, nothing's perfect. I'm never going to find that. I will be committed. My desire to commit is greater than my desire to run. See, because there's this generation that's saying, the reason I don't want to commit is because if I say yes to this, look at all the things I might be saying no to. That's not godly, that's not biblical. And ladies, if a guy's like that, run from him. Run from him. You have no business being there. She's saying, I want to have a committed relationship. I don't want to just be friends. Now look at this. She wants to be with him over lunch. I don't mean they want to share a salad. Tell me, you whom my soul loves, where you pasture your flock, where you make it lie down at noon, because I want to come there. Now, this is very interesting. She's basically saying, tell me where your office is, and tell me where you're going to be. I know you're a salesman or you're whatever. I want to know where you're going to be parking your car, because I'm going to come and we're going to have an afternoon together. That's aggressive, right? That's aggressive. And here's this wife going, man, I want this. I want this from my husband, right? And apparently that's a good thing, right? It reminds me of that commercial from several years ago. I don't know if any of you remember it, where they showed a guy sitting, he was kind of bored at work, and he's sitting at a table with his friends, and they're having some meeting or whatever, and he gets a phone call, and his wife basically says, did you look in your lunch? And he's like, what do you mean? No, look at your lunch. And he reaches down, and you don't see it on camera, but he pulls it out, and it's obviously a photo of her, and he just goes, wow, I'll be right home, right? Well, I would suggest to you that might be biblical. That might be a godly thing for a wife to do. And he loves this, right? Now, the last thing I want you to see is how he affirms his attraction to her. Right, so now read in verse 8, starting in verse 8, he says, if you don't know, O most beautiful among women, right? So he's this is interesting, kind of playful, flirting with one another, but he says, but the first thing he does, remember, what is she insecure about right now? I don't know if he feels the same way, but I don't know if he finds me beautiful. So now he's going to start with her beauty, and he's going to say, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. What an affirmation. I know you might look at all your flaws. You might look in the mirror and see all the wrinkles. You might see things you don't like. I look at you and you're beautiful. What an affirmation. So he says, yep, I'm physically attracted. But then he says, I want to be more than friends, right? He makes it clear that he's interested in more than friendship. So he says, look, O most beautiful among women, if you do not know, follow in the tracks of the flock, pasture your young goats beside the shepherd's tents, right? So he's saying, okay, I'm going to tell you how to get to me. I'm here, you want to be here, I want you to be here with me. And here's the big principle I want you to see, reciprocation. I want you to see that there is, she wants something, he says, he affirms that, right? This thing can go forward. If you want your friendship, if you want this relationship to progress, then both parties must want it to progress, right? Because if she says, I'm not interested, guys, the translation for that is, I'm not interested. And you move on. Right? She's not going, I'm going to stalk you down at noon, right? I'm going to be creepy. No, she's saying, where are you? Will you reciprocate? Do you want me to come be with you? And if he'd have said, nope, it'd have been done. See, guys, no amount of flowers and chocolate is going to change her mind about you. And ladies, no amount of seduction is going to change it. You could get that guy in bed, and that doesn't mean you have his heart. In fact, what you probably have done is saying, you can have every part of me without any kind of commitment. And he's saying, look, here's the kind of, when we say reciprocity, when you see this in the book of Song of Solomon, here's a man and woman saying, I want this. Oh yeah, I want that too. I'm like this. I'm like that too. Here's who I am. Do you like this about me? I love that about you. You are beautiful all the way through. I mean, he affirms every part of her. And the kind of reciprocity you're looking for is that says, do you want to honor God in this relationship? Yeah, I do too. You find somebody like that, go. See, married couples, here's something for you. The Song of Solomon envisions a kind of relationship within marriage where one spouse can pursue the other spouse and not have their hand slapped, but receive affirmation. Like, you want me, I want you. And we're going to build each other up through this. See how they deal with these insecurities? But now, here's the most important question we can ask. What does this tell us about Jesus? How do you see Jesus in the Song of Solomon here? Let's start with reciprocity. The Bible says, from Old Testament to New, if you seek me, you will find me. Jesus is not playing hide and seek with anybody. You come after me, I'll be there. Jonah, you turn around, you don't have to run back to Nineveh. Boom, God's there, I'm here. You seek Christ, you find Christ. He is not trying to hide from anybody. This is not a secret society. This is him inviting you into a relationship. But what else? What so often keeps us from entering into the ultimate relationship, the relationship we need more than anything else, a relationship with God through Christ? What keeps us out so often is fear. Like, I'm afraid if I walk into a church, lightning's going to strike. I'm afraid I've got this past. I'm afraid I've got these horrible things about me that God is going to reject me. And the whole of Scripture is no, no, no. He will not reject you. He will not turn you away. If you seek him, you'll find him. And you'll find him with wide open arms going, come. I want you. I desire you. And you don't get there, right? We come to Christ, can we say it this way? Darkened by sin. And he goes, you're beautiful. You are beautiful. I want you the way you are. Does that mean Christ says, hey, I don't care about your sin? No, he cares deeply. I mean, I think the extension of this is to go to a place, one of the most beautiful passages in Scripture is Ezekiel chapter 16, where it's this wonderful, it's amazing how God talks about his love for his people. And he says, I found you. You were an infant. You were a brand new born infant dumped on the side of the road. And you were covered in blood. This is how new. And I picked you up. Right? Infants that are that young do not go, let me make myself better so that I'm more acceptable. No, they're just blubbering. They're bloody. There's nothing they can do. And Christ says, I picked you up and I wiped you off and I cleaned you and I raised you and I adorned you and I dressed you and I put pearls around your necklace and I gave you and I got you ready to be a bride. I did it all. I'll take you exactly where you are right now. And then I'll begin to conform you to the image of my Son. I'll begin to transform you through the power of the gospel. This is the great love of God for us. Do you see? This is the gospel. I will deal with every fear. And this is one of the primary motivations of the human heart, is just we're afraid. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of missing out. We're afraid that God will turn us away because every religion in the world says you ought to be afraid. Because if you don't perform well enough, God won't love you. And Christianity comes along and says, I'm dark. I'm stained by sin. And Jesus says, and I love you right now. And there's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. And I'm going to begin to transform you. It's amazing. That's the gospel. That's the Song of Solomon.